Welcome to Podcast This Escape, the podcast where we talk about the escape room we escaped from in the previous episode of this podcast.
Dave and PG, you lasered a boy.
You lasered a boy!
Living the dream.
Yeah, congratulations. You did. Now, we mentioned it probably in passing during the actual episode, but we definitely mentioned it to you. We recorded these rooms slightly out of order, specifically because we thought this was the hardest of the rooms. And we didn't want to give you an easy one. Some of these rooms this season have been easy. Now, so we gave you one that was probably, well, not easy, but like a little bit simpler. So we thought we'd give you one that had
A little
the
bit
hardest
more.
puzzles.
Super experienced escape room people will look at it and go, cool, I know exactly what that is done.
Yeah, so we tried to play with, word ladders and other strange things and connections with sequencing and like little like fake ones where you're like, oh, I've got 7s and 5s. Maybe it's like alphabetical. And nope, it's not. So it was definitely a harder one, but you got stuck on the bits that were meant to get people stuck, right? You got stuck on the bits.
It felt like those were meant to get stuck on.
Absolutely.
And I want to talk about these a little bit. Usually we start with like, oh, what did you feel good about? What did you feel? I want to talk about this because we did this word ladder, and for me, I went like when I was playtesting, I was. It took a while, but once I kind of figured out maybe these relate to the code and they're 4 letters, I went, oh, pied. Okay, oh, and pies. Pie's a pastry. Pied is Pied Piper. Those are 2 letters, and they're only one different. Maybe I'm doing a word ladder. And
Our brains clearly synced at that.
What was tough is that you started going, okay, well, you have a Pied Piper as a starting point. That is similar
That
to
has
pies.
pie
That's
in
like
it.
the word pied kind of is similar to both of those ideas. And then you went to donuts, which is kind of like pastries and holes. And like,
Yeah,
and
you
so
were filling in the gaps
you started doing
between
something
them
different, which
before you were supposed to, sort of, because that was for the letters
and
later.
so because of that, like you were already like pied and pies. Yeah, there's a connection, which means the word. And so like your method was completely like a legitimate way to look at it, but it meant that you were immediately thrown off the correct path because you found some other path that looked just as inviting.
And we did it with such vigor.
You were so into it. You said the word donut. Like once you said donuts, you're like donuts. Bang, 100%. No worries. Donuts is the answer.
Well, it felt like a good connection between pastries and holes so deep. I was like, okay,
A pastry
that
with
works.
a hole.
Yeah.
And it was interesting, right? Because this is probably something if we were the kind of people who were releasing this as a an escape room in a box to take home, we would probably do a lot more. We would do a lot more playtesting, and we'd probably notice that I think a lot of people would go there with those kind of thematic connections as like a different way of looking at the same. It's when you're in a park and you see the paved road and then the little pleasure trail of people who've all walked the exact same way and worn a new path. I'm sure we would end up with that immediately because there was the way that we were like, yep, this is a word ladder, linguistic connections. It's purely based on the letters. And then you found these really convincing thematic things. Because you convinced me. I was like, of course it's donut. It's got to be pastries and holes. What else could it be? And I knew the answer. So it was interesting.
Well, what was interesting for me was there was a little bit of metagaming going on, and that like I could tell from both of your reactions that at least some of what we had was right. And in my head, I took all of that. I took that to mean all of the stuff we have so far is right. And I was like, okay, well, we just have to figure out this one other one. And it turned out we were only like half correct and only for half of the right reasons.
Oh. Yeah, there are definitely some ways that this could have been refined. That said, I will say, coming up with a short word ladder whose letter changes create a word in themselves is so freaking hard that any little change that I needed to make, like, places, that could be a couple of different things. Maybe it could be pins. I wanted it to be puts. You wanted it to be sits. And so theoretically, I would change that. But then there's a chance I would have to change the entire word ladder and that would make me cry.
Now,
So it was so hard.
pins is interesting because I didn't notice pins in the playtest because pins does, because like sits was my thought. Places, sits. And then I went, well, that doesn't work because we can't connect to, that last one's definitely going to be puns.
Yeah.
Pins was interesting because it does
It
connect.
did fit
hits
to
and
both.
puns.
The one
I
thing
felt
that
so good about it. And
Yeah, it was a good get.
I mean, and places is weird because you're thinking places like to place something on a table, but when we're looking at the word by itself,
it looks like the noun.
A place.
We're hitting you with that
Yeah.
cryptic crossword style tricks.
Oh,
The one
man.
thing
Yeah.
that I feel has differently, the one thing that I feel makes pins not fit, and this is by no means a rule with this, was that it was also the third letter changing, but the third letter
changing
has
the same
already
letter
changed.
twice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah,
So
that's
that would
where I
be
got a little bit confused.
why
Yeah,
I wouldn't
I-
be crazy about that. But
I agree with that.
it's definitely not a hard and fast rule in word ladders.
No.
It just means that step, you could just cut it, the step before it.
I have to be honest, I'm not especially well versed on like word ladder standards and etiquette. Like, I know that, you know, Lisa got really into crossword puzzles over the pandemic, and oh my, do crossword people have so many like standards and assumptions and like things that they care very much about. And I'm like,
Ugh.
I don't
Well-
know why you care.
Worse, that varies from country to country, so
Yeah.
we all have different
Well,
standards.
Oh, yeah.
It honestly, it seems to vary from person to person, but people are like very vigorous about, you know, that like it feels very like religious.
And it is one of those things actually that we find that doing cryptic crosswords is that cryptic crosswords have a very, very set, you know, conventions in terms of like that one of the starts or the ends will be where the actual like the kind of synonym solution is, and there's a construction in the middle, and and they have all these sorts of rules. And those are the ones that are very different regionally. Like American, I feel like there's a thing where like American cryptic crossword fans look at an Australian cryptic crossword and they're like, ugh, how dare you? You've broken the rules.
Uncultured swine.
That's not how it's meant to be done. But then you also do get the same thing from publication to publication. When you find like a new newspaper's whole archive of cryptic crosswords, you have to start learning like their games and their little rules. You're like, oh, we're doing a Guardian crossword. Well, it's going to be like this. They got their own little culture here of how to give clues. It is a funny world of puzzles.
But it's also the same in escape rooms where like if we're playing a whole bunch of games at a single company, I like to start with their easiest room and just start to learn like how do they go about doing this? You know, what's their shtick? And that way, as you go into the harder rooms, you can be like, oh yeah, you know what? Like in the last game, everything solved really cleanly. So if we're stuck, it's probably our fault. Or in the last game, things were total nonsense. So if we're stuck, let's go and start doing weird stuff.
That's fair.
Yeah, it is. And escape rooms in general have that sort of language. Like I think a lot of the times when you're talking with escape room people who've played more than, you know, you can say, hey, I did a room the other day and they expected me to know the capital of Germany. And it's like, well, we all know the capital of Germany in this room. Yeah, but come on, they expected me to just know the capital of Germany. And everyone goes, yeah, that's ridiculous. Why would they expect you to just know the capital of Germany? There had to have been a hint somewhere that told you something as boring as the capital of Germany, just in case you didn't know. You know, and so like there's certain things I feel like you can say in escape room context and be like, hey, here's a thing that happened, and people will get like, oh, that's not acceptable. We don't do that here.
Yeah. Well, like the standard one that people get really uppity about that I don't necessarily think needs to be a hard and fast rule is reuse. People get super crazy about like, oh, they made us reuse that thing twice. I don't really care so much.
Yeah, I like some reuse. I think reuse can be fun, but
I think
I
when
would accept
the game
that
is
some
well
people might
designed,
be
I don't.
shocked.
Yeah, when the game is well designed, I don't care. The thing is with reuse, especially if you kind of go back in time to the olden days of like 8 years ago, when escape rooms were just filled with tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of props. You know, the anti-reuse thing was really useful because it protected the props from the players, because like otherwise people would like, oh, I'm going to use this lock as a screwdriver because I can.
I do feel like I have a cultural expectation that I will use everything only once.
I think that there are times where people build some interesting interactions that involve mastery or involve a computer, or like there's a lot of things that people end up reusing in escape rooms and they don't think of it as reuse.
That is possibly true. I think the big issue is, though, I agree, regardless of whether or not like you should reuse or you shouldn't, I think it is important that people who are designing rooms with objects that get reused need to kind of be aware of the fact that the general culture is not to reuse. So you need to hint it with a...
There needs to be a bit of
it's
telegraphing.
kind of a bit
Signposting.
more vigor. Yeah.
Because the worst part is that what happens is they build this in, they reuse it, maybe it's a cool thing, and then they realize people are coming in and not thinking they're going to reuse it because it is that cultural expectation. So now the game master, before the game starts, and I hate when they do this, the game master has to say like, hey, there's going to be something you're going to reuse now. You know,
Yeah,
I'm not going to tell you what it is, but
yeah, you need like
but
a proper
you'll know-
in-game kind of thing to make it
you know,
obvious.
and then it ruins the surprise.
You just
right?
need signposting. Like
Yeah.
you can, all things are doable through good signposting.
I feel like what I tend to do, I'm sure I do reusing sometimes, and then sometimes I actively avoid reusing. I feel like I tend to take one object and give it like two ends to it, like use the front of the object for this and the back of the object for this. Or sometimes here is something that you can gain by looking at the object, and then later you will have to do something physical with the object.
It can be fun to
where does
break an
that
object
fit?
down into subcategories. Right.
Yeah, in a lot of my earlier notes especially, you will see things like I will have a word, I don't know, window 1, 2 in little subscript because I will take it in two different directions in two different ways.
And you have a lot of power in the way that you narrate, and you do a very good job of making it clear when stuff is relevant and when it isn't, and when there's a curiosity about a thing, like you draw attention to it, and then it's sort of on the player if they, if we ignore it, and then it's like,
Yeah.
well, she was stressing some syllables there.
It is really good to be able to be in control the whole time. Every time, if we do a commissioned room and I write out my notes and then I'm just giving it to the other person and saying, cool, this is yours now. Do well with it, I guess. That terrifies me because I
Make
have
good decisions.
So yeah, I like being in the control seat for these to be able to do that.
Yeah, I don't blame you. How often do you find yourself delivering a line and kind of like realizing, you know what, I really need to just add another word or two here because as I'm saying this, I'm realizing that I'm about to make a mistake.
Oh, a mistake, probably not that frequent. How many times do I say something and then realize, oh God, I've accidentally made something sound really important when it was just a throwaway thing that I was trying to improvise? That happens a lot.
I got incredibly worried about that in this episode.
Oh no,
Do you know
what
it
did I
was?
do? No, I have no idea.
What did you think about the small chocolate bar at the start of the room?
I thought that we were doing. I thought we were going to be doing some kind of like size manipulation.
That the small writing was too important?
I think when they were like, "What does it say?" and you're like, "Well, I think the issue is this small chocolate bar it's too small. You can't see the writing.
Yeah.
The writing is far too small. If the writing were any bigger, perhaps you could read it." And I thought, "Oh no, they're gonna get caught on this, and they're gonna be trying to blow it up and make it big." Luckily, you didn't get stuck.
There was no way to make that happen in the room.
True.
But
It
that's fair.
definitely was something that I thought about a couple different times, but then
We went straight to eating it.
yeah.
Look, in my original very early states of planning the room, I was definitely planning on doing some differences between the big chocolate bar and the little chocolate bar. And then, quite frankly, I couldn't be bothered. That was all going to be a bit too bitsy.
Yeah,
I'm
I agree
glad you didn't.
that the information shouldn't have been there. It was just something about the wording of
I think
denying
it's
it. I
because
went,
you,
oh no.
in the playtest, you went straight to looking at it, but I didn't have anything planned for it then either. So I thought, okay, why couldn't you just read completely different numbers on that bar and then try to make something of that? So she went, you can't read them.
I mean, this one, it could have just been like, there's a spot where the label was, but it looks like it's fallen off.
Oh, that was another part of it. That's totally part of it. Oh my God. Originally, I don't even know how much the big chocolate bar was involved in this. The small chocolate bar had gone through the transfer process, but only the label had made it out, but a bit of the label was still stuck in the pixels as well. That was originally part of the planning.
Read anything off it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, this was all just original puzzles getting rejected, and then I didn't fully sweep them over enough. So the holes were still there.
We didn't get hung up on it. I think we both do this, is that like in an escape room, like in solving any kind of escape room, I just kind of assume that like always go the path of forward momentum, like just, search, If you find something you can work on it, but just always keep moving forward and do the things. And if you have an idea and you're like, oh, I think that might be a thing, like don't try and force it. Wait for the right moment to work with it is sort of how I try to approach it.
I know the way you work in some of these situations, and so I trust you in that way as a player, and that makes it very nice.
Yeah, and I played enough of your games and listened to enough of them to know that I can always trust that like there is going to be a clean solution, and if I'm stuck,
I'm not going to
make a crucial mistake.
Yeah. If I'm stuck, it's on me. So like there's high trust, and that is that means that when we're making weird word associations and it's not working, I was like, well, that's definitely us.
It's funny that like we all know each other well enough. We have high trust in each other. It doesn't mean that our brains are necessarily in sync with each other.
No. Especially on word puzzles, not my forte.
Yeah.
Where is Lisa?
Yeah.
Lisa's upstairs working on putting together our next escape room tour, which we'll be announcing soon to New Orleans in November.
Nice. Also a likely excuse.
Yeah. Did you have any moments in this room that you felt like good, that you like was kind of moments for you to stand out as a player, or maybe the room was good even if you didn't?
Anything that made you feel smug?
I really liked the basic computation puzzle. It came together quickly. I truly enjoyed that the graphic looked like a combination of a pie and a donut.
See the donut. I'm telling you.
Yeah. We're just trolling you at this point.
Yeah, that to me was just like, the first time that I played, there was the bear that was like, I thought I was just making an interesting moment, but it was entirely Danny.
That's right.
But like this time around, I was like, oh no, this was mine and PG's nonsense, and we made our own callback.
Serendipitously appeared later on.
Yes, that just brought joy to me.
I know. My favorite part, like, probably won't even make it into the episode, and it was the joke about the donut and the nunnery.
Yeah, but I really liked the there was a simplicity to the room. There was not a lot of stuff in it.
No, that was my deliberate intent for this mini arc. Trying to make them small.
Which was good because the puzzles were plenty challenging, and so when we were stuck, it wasn't like, oh, we need to keep searching this room, because the room was basically a white box. And so that I found especially helpful, given that there were two puzzles that like we really had to work hard on.
Sit and stare at.
Yeah.
Well, this last one, I was very impressed. I don't know that I would have gotten that. Like, I don't know that I would have thought to have count the number of letters in a word.
It clicked. That also did feel good.
This was like a Rain Man.
Yes, and
like
it's an interesting one because again, right? It's like it was. I mentioned it in the episode. That it was the same sort of issue of like it's not like a thematic, semantic kind of issue here. Like these two sentences that seem like they seem like they're saying the same thing in slightly different wording. They are saying the same thing pretty much. They are just asking for daily calorie consumption stuff, and like it is so you can't find the problem with it based on what what does it mean? How does it has to come down to something very mechanical. And knowing why one sentence gives you one number and the other sentence must give you a different number.
That puzzle initially in my notes, again, because it was just a torn label situation, it was originally just like advised daily intake in calories, 7.5, and you just had to fill in the rest of it. There was no second wording.
Oh, I see. That's so, and instead you had one full example.
Exactly.
I think the how it came out is probably a better implementation.
When I streamlined the pixels as just nope, pixels, you just get a chocolate, done.
Yeah.
Then all of that had to be shifted.
The aha for me came in knowing that we had fully searched the room, that there were no other missing pieces. We had used everything else in the room, so I felt like the puzzle solution had to be right in front of me. It had to be in the sentences and that number. And so once like the focus was narrowed down to that specific thing, I was like, there's not a lot of things that I can be doing with these.
And I think that is a really key part of puzzle solving, is knowing when you must have all of it. Like, it's like, when can you be sure that this is solvable so you're not wasting your time? And I think learning that is such a thing that differentiates people who've done a lot of puzzles or haven't done as many. I think it's like a learned skill of being able to look at something and say, I can do this, I can't do this, let's like, and move on from there. And being forced to be basically told, hey, you've got everything you need, is often something that will kick your brain into like, oh, okay, well, in that case, what could I figure out? How could this be everything I need? Like, how could I do this with no extra steps? What am I being told by what I've got?
In a physical room, that is way harder to be certain of.
Yeah.
Yeah, and in a physical room, like my whole thing is, if you're not actively working on the puzzle, then you should be walking around and taking in the environment. You should be searching. Yeah, especially if something was hidden earlier. But yeah, it just different modes of thinking based off of the medium that you're in, and in this one, it's a different, more constrained medium.
Yeah, and I think, like, we've had that from the beginning. Like, we don't need to fill the rooms with extra objects to make it look good. We can just tell you, it looks good. Imagine a place that looks good. Now, here are the objects that we actually care about. So we don't have to have those issues with, like, red herring paintings that are there just because without it, the wall was too bare, or, red herring carpet because that was just the carpet of the space that we had and we didn't, and so we can end up with a lot more clarity in what are the actual elements that you have you're available. What are the tools? You have explicitly 5 things, and here's what each of those 5 and I think it does help for clear puzzle solving, and it allows us to then get a bit more weird with the puzzles, because we can force you to be like, nah, you've got everything. Sit and think and do this puzzle. Don't get distracted. There are no distractions. It's all you can do. And I think it helps.
I always still feel funny like that sometimes in rooms. Get the people, they're just talking, they're trying to figure out what to look at next, and they'll just say, what's going on with the ceiling? And if I have not mentioned the ceiling at any point in my description, I didn't know that a ceiling existed. This room may not have a ceiling, I'm not sure.
Who knows?
But
we only had the one programmer, so it's just dark and you can't see it.
Oh. All right, so that's probably about it mechanically as far as there is to go. We didn't change too much between playtest and this.
I will say I got very stuck on the 75628 as well as when I was doing the playtest. Especially because I didn't write out the original sentence. I just had the number and like a vague feeling of what the sentence was. And so then when I got the new sentence, like, isn't that the same sentence? But I think possibly that's what helped, because eventually my question was, wait a minute, is that sentence different from my original sentence, after trying the number for a while and then being like, oh, wait a minute, they are slightly different. And that, like, coming in about, 60% of the way through my solve allowed me to be like, that's it. That's what I've got to drill down on. What are the exact linguistic differences? So I think maybe the pattern of my confusion helped me get that aha moment, because it was like it came in after I'd been trying for a while rather than being hidden at the start of the puzzle.
I would also say the one big change that happens was the image of the computer password screen was not a thing in the playtest.
And I was so happy, because originally the computer just said, give me a 4-digit password. And that was it. Yeah. And I was like, I think we need something to make it clear that this is associated with the table list.
I had no computer screen, just you need a 4-letter password and the image from the table as you saw it with the little dot point poem. But I said to Billy that I was pretty sure that was too hard. As it was, there wasn't enough connection there. And the hint that I had in mind to adjust it was to put a little 4 in brackets with the dot point poem to like make it like a crossword, like you are looking for a 4-letter answer, and having that be the connection. And that did immediately make you get there and make you realize they were connected. And then you went, is that too much?
Because that made me go, oh, all of these are 4 letters. I've got 4, and that made the word ladder very apparent quite quickly to my eyes. Because I went, I need a 4-letter word for each of these. Pied, pies,
as soon as you got pied, cool. You were there.
So I think we took away that, which would have had you get it quite quickly.
I think
but
we would have
possibly
gone
over
straight to word ladder if we knew they were all 4.
Yeah.
And I think I
like
kind of
this
didn't want that to
hinting.
happen too quick.
Yeah, so I was sort of crossing my fingers that if you got pied and puns, that might be enough to help you get that maybe they were all like that.
It helped, you know what? When I finally started writing down all the words too, like
Yeah, it definitely helped. I mean, but we were it was donuts that really, and our commitment to donuts.
David, you explicitly had a moment of being like, okay, well, it looks like they're probably all going to be 4 letters and all start with P. And then immediately the conversation went back to donuts.
Yeah,
that doesn't true for donuts, so it can't be true.
I was there, but then donuts just felt so right.
It felt so right.
And I was like, oh, terrible idea, David. Put that away. That really interesting pattern of 4 letters and everything is starting with the letter P. That seems like it really should be meaningful.
But how does that mean donuts?
Donuts.
It can't be done. Wonderful.
And the Grand Canyon got in there somewhere.
Well, I think we could talk about donuts for hours, but maybe we should start to leave that there with the room.
And just a final couple of thoughts about how the story's going.
Oh, we could talk about the story. I do like that this sort of revelation that you're a health inspector.
Everybody is thinking it.
I mean, it is true. It's the classic complaint about the factory.
See, now we're going to go and we're going to record. We're recording out of order. You're going to listen to rooms 2 and 3 as we record them, and you're going to notice how sweating Matthew Martin is when he tells you, "No, it's totally safe, guys," and how you are very focused on how he's brought this on himself.
Oh, that's fun. I like that.
Nice.
It'd be nice to see the audience see that build up.
I'm excited to hear the resolution.
And more to the point, I've asked you this, Billy. I don't know if I asked you this on audio. What haven't you seen yet that feels weird to have not seen? We got a Loompa song.
We did get an Oompa Loompa song. We haven't seen Fizzy Lift. What if the whole final room is an airborne chase with Fizzy lifting drink as Matthew Martin tries to get away? Maybe he gets away in a great glass elevator. So you drink some Fizzy lifting drink and you fly after him and you have to tail him. I don't know if that's going to happen.
But it would be pretty weird if neither of those
bucket.
things were there.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. David and PG, is there anything that you feel like needs to be present at some point in this arc?
Fizzy lifting drinks.
Fine, everyone loves Fizzy lifting drink.
And maybe a creepy boat ride.
No. The creepy boat ride is the only flaw in the movie.
How about this? You start to chase Matthew Martin. And he runs. He jumps into his boat. You have to chase him through the creepy boat ride. He gets off. He gets onto that train that constantly shoots soap suds or bubbles or whatever the heck that train is. That thing that...
It's a
do you remember
car,
the
isn't
train?
it?
It's a vehicle.
It's a car, but it's got it looks like a steam
It's like a parade
train.
float, a steampunk parade float.
Well, then he gets on that and he drives away. He gets to the Fizzy lifting drink room. You chase him up there, and because we've been reading far too much Stormlight Archive in this house, I'm just like, he half lashes upwards with Fizzy lifting. He drinks exactly enough Fizzy lifting drink for a full basic lashing upwards. You fly upwards, you're following him, he goes through the roof, gets into the Great Glass Elevator, and then you follow him into space, and then it turns out it is a 10-episode arc, and we do Charlie in the Great Glass Elevator. Done. I've solved
that
it.
second book is terrifying.
It's very weird. Do they meet the president in that second book in space? Do they meet the space president of the United States?
I haven't read it, but I believe it.
Something very weird in that book.
They get chased by these weird slug aliens or something
I just remember them going into the whole Oompa Loompa culture more, and I was like, you know what? It was better when the whole economics and social implications of the Oompa Loompas was left vague and fuzzy. Adding more detail to it just didn't do it favors.
Yeah, no, I could agree with that.
Are they being paid in cocoa beans? Is that a thing?
Being paid in something, but it feels very much like...
It's hard to remember what's in the second book, what's in the second movie.
Yeah.
And what is... not it's hard to remember the exact where the politics of the Oompa Loompa Loompa Land was a place, right?
It was definitely in the original movie.
And they said they got away from the
Snozwangers and Vamishus Canids, which I believe might appear in Great Glass Elevator.
I think those aliens in Great Glass Elevator are Vamishus Canids.
Yes, that's what I was trying to remember the name. They look like these giant commas or something.
The vivid memory that I have of when Willy Wonka is told that story and then Veruca's father, just blank face, just goes, Snozzwangers, Mrs. Knids. And it's, please go and rewatch that movie. Just
Go
for all
watch
of
the movie. It's a good movie.
Just for all of the parents, every adult in that movie is spectacular.
I will say, weirdly, the most quotable part of that movie for me that I say constantly for no
every
reason
day.
is when he puts in the little keyboard puzzle and he goes da-la-la, da-la-la-la-la-la, and
Mike TV's
mom
mother
just goes Rachmaninoff. And I just say Rachmaninoff in that exact way constantly.
Every time a password exists, pretty much.
Anytime we do a password, especially if we're playing an escape game that involves something vaguely musical, like, oh, you press these piano buttons, I just go, da-da-da-da, Rachmaninoff, and then the door opens. It shouldn't be as quotable as it is. It's just the name of a composer.
When we walk into an escape room that has a piano, I always go and bang on the 2 highest notes and say, they hate this.
It's so funny, this movie. Just where it is in our influence. It's from the 70s. It is not our childhood movies.
It's everyone's childhood.
It's really
everyone's
something.
childhood movies. But I think the true sequel should really be like a movie about a reality show called Keeping Up with the Sulks, and it's about Veruca and her kids.
I love it.
God, it's wonderful. So happy.
Veruca,
Getting to do a parody of something.
your show has been shown in 120 out of the 200 countries in the world. No, I want the world. I want the whole world. All right. I think we should leave it there. So if people wanted to see other stuff that you guys are doing, I know that you've got another season 4 of Reality Escape Pod should be coming out at some point soon. Where can people go and see all the cool stuff that you're doing?
Yeah, so roomescapeartist.com. I'm providing you with our little homemade link tree. It's a good way to go and get to all of our nonsense, the podcast, our reviews, all of our commentary, and all of stuff we write about escape rooms daily. We just hosted the Reality Escape Convention in Boston. It was sold out. I am hoping at this point it went really, really well. And Reality Escape Pod Season 4 is coming in October. And you can catch up on the first 3 seasons if you haven't listened to them yet.
Perfect
Available
timing.
everywhere you can get your podcasts.
Yes, indeed.
Binge them now before the new season starts.
That's the best way to listen to podcasts.
That's it. All right, lovely. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah,
it was wonderful to have you on.
We didn't say enough. We're so close to you that we forget the polite niceties. But congratulations. You guys did super well. And thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much. And thank you for making a wonderful game for us to play yet again.
Thanks for having us. This has been so much fun.
Wonderful. And thank you, everybody at home, for listening in. If you want to help support the show, look, the easiest thing for you to do, tell a friend. Go onto some kind of internet forum and tell them about us. Go to Reddit and say, hey, you love escape rooms? Go to make a TikTok about us. I don't have a TikTok. Make a TikTok about us. Just spread the word is always the best thing you can do. You can also help support the show on our Patreon. Anybody who signs up at any level can appear as an NPC in one of Danny's rooms.
Oh, yes. Who do we have today? We have Mike Watson. Thank you so much. We've got a couple of the other little mentions who will probably get a bit more focus in the other rooms. So
Yes, of
we've
course, all
got
the other
Chan.
kids
We've
and-
got our boss, Ken Arthur Slugworth.
Oh. So wonderful. They can all appear as NPCs. Anyone who has a $5 donor can hear all of our bonus episodes. There's new bonus podcasts every week. You can hear the playtest audio for this room, and you can hear how much I struggled with that 7, 5, 6, 2, 8 puzzle. You can listen to our 2-minute mystery series where we solve 2-minute mysteries as written by Donald Sobel, and we try and guess what they're going to be before we answer them. And there's a lot of strange character work and Googling of various facts and lots of singing.
Dear.
It's a weird show, but you'll love it. And there are badges for our $10 donors and more fun. And I think apparently I promised that if you're a $50 donor, Danny will tell you the entire plot of Willy Wonka. So that's a perk apparently. And that's a great way to support the network, support this and Solve This Murder and any other fun projects that we're working on. And it helps keep everything else free for everybody else to listen to. So it's community service, really.
And
So
don't
thank you,
forget to
everybody.
write a review.
Tax
And
deductible.
write a review. I haven't asked for reviews in a long time. Write a review of this show. A good one. Oh, hold on. A good one, please.
Please?
Not a bad one.
Please?
Please. Don't give us a 1-star
Give
review.
this podcast a 5-star review. It is so helpful.
Exactly. See, they're saying it. So you got to believe them. All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for listening. Thank you, everybody, for coming on and playing our room. Thank you, Danny, for running it.
Thank you for doing some lump singing.
I did some lump singing. I
Oh,
didn't know there was a song in
gosh.
there. All right. Bye, everybody.
Why did I say that?
Bye.